Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Del. We're back again.
We are back again. And, it's so funny. During my week, between when we do these things, I pay attention to like a theme that may be coming up in my life and also my client's life. And I just find it really funny how the synchronicity of that can happen. So, and also in my sort of friends' lives. But so what I wanted to talk about today with you is this sort of the shoulds, or as some people call it, the musts, or the masturbating, as they call it. So,
or the have-tos, which is a little bit more polite.
So, sorry, what was that?
Or the have-tos, which is a little bit more polite.
Have-tos, exactly. And so I'll just say in my own life, well, first of all, I was at dinner the other night, and somebody said to me, "So, when are you and Hootie getting married?" And I said, "No, it's not really on the top of our agenda or anything." And we've been together almost 15 years now, and it's great. I change it. And then somebody said, "Well, if you do get married, that means you're going to have to live together." And I was like, "Who said?"
Interesting.
Interesting. It's like, where did that come from? And also, I've just finished reading a book that I found fascinating. It was called All Fours, and it's about a woman, and I was going to say her midlife crisis, but I think she's only about 45 in the book. But it really is about questioning her life choices, and just being her authentic self within her marriage. What does she articulate? What does she speak up about? And so it's really interesting, this whole concept of how we come onto this planet with this, and I'm not that I'm against, certain societal rules. I think it's really good that we don't end up like murdering and pillaging each other and everything like that. I think there's certain criteria that but it's almost like we've been handed this book, this sort of like how to do life, the shoulds of life. And some of us never question the validity of some of those shoulds. So that's what's up for me this week. Did anything spark in you when I was mentioning that?
Oh, the list of shoulds, must-dos, have-tos, etc., do play through my mind quite frequently. And I'm thinking of any conversations I've had with recent clients. I've had feedback from people who think I should do certain things a certain way. So if that's me, that pressure put on, yeah. And every time that happens, kind of like you, it just goes, seriously? It doesn't. There's not, because the thing about it is, having done this work, like you've done this work for so many years too, I recognize when that presumption is thrown at me.
Yeah. And
so I don't have to receive it the way it's sent. I can look at it and go, that, so like catching midair and go, that's an interesting thing. What do I do with this?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that I have those skills, but definitely shoulds are abounding. I'm having a whole, I won't say dialogue as much, it's pretty one-sided at the moment. Somebody on social media who I was talking to through Messenger, we started having this conversation because we both have a similar background heritage, but then the conversation went so diverse because she started looking at one through one lens, and then of course I was on the other side of the conversation, so I put it on the other side, and the list of presumptions, shoulds, and labels that were thrown, that I would say she threw more at me than I did at her.
Yeah.
I basically was said at the end, it's like, I think we're done. And she keeps going.
Well, sorry, Barry, but I'm gonna just because I'm nosy. I want more details. I want a little more, just sort of, because we can have these conversations and sometimes they can seem a little sort of esoteric. But
well, yeah, the reason I wasn't saying anything because it leads into the world view and also politics. So I won't necessarily get the whole conversation. But let's simply put it this way: she and I are both Jewish.
Okay.
And our views on Israel differ.
Yes.
And the thing is that the respect isn't equalized between what each other's views are. That's where it started. Then it got very American political too. And so I was doing my best to be centered doing my best to be, not saying I was perfect. But then it's like she kept shoulding on me and sort of like, because, and also she was aligning me to the beliefs that she thinks the other side has,
Mm,
which I don't abide by and I don't think are actually accurate, which is one of the challenges in our society currently anyway, which could be a whole other topic. How we make assumptions about what's going on, and then we step on each side of the battlefield, so to speak, and don't actually meet in the middle and talk about it.
mm,
So the shoulds were happening, but also another level was, it was just like, I'm right, you're wrong.
yeah.
Which is funny because I'm actually writing an article for a mastermind group I'm in about that topic, about right, wrong, and how the only way I can get out of that, kind of like Rumi, is to move into curiosity versus like sticking to one of the other side. And so the shoulding, to come back to the topic we're talking about today,
Mm-hmm.
is that there's an assumption I feel like people do, that if one person has one viewpoint, you've either got to agree with them, you should agree with them, or if you don't, you should be expelled or ejected from the social circle.
Mm.
So it's not
Yes,
necessarily romantic, but it's an interesting thing.
it's fascinating what you're talking about, and I completely get it. And Hudi is Jewish, and he's not just Jewish; he's Israeli. So I mean, there's
Agreed.
that other added layer on it. And there is an assumption made simply because he's Israeli that he must feel a certain way.
Hmm.
And it's fascinating. And I was at a dinner party a few months back, and it was very clear that the hostess of the party had her very different views
Hmm.
on, on Israel than maybe I share and Hudi share. And I was extremely polite because number one, I'm in her house, and number two, I just got curious and I just did exactly that. And
Yeah.
rather than it be a who's right or who's wrong, I really just got curious and wanted to know more. And we
Hmm.
ended up having a really, really great conversation, a very respectful, and I thanked her and I said, thank you for illuminating me more on why you think the way you do. It was very interesting, and I'm very grateful for you taking the time to do that. And it was such a pleasant exchange when we clearly saw something so differently, because there wasn't shoulds. There were no shoulds there. She didn't believe that she understood I felt differently, but there wasn't this expectation that I should, and therefore a
Right.
force. There was a mutual respect of having different views. It's so interesting, and bringing it back to the shoulds again in relationships. I was out a week or so ago with a friend and her boyfriend, and she had a list of shoulds of how he should behave when they're
Hmm.
out together. And it was really interesting because I absolutely did not see her list of shoulds the way I in my relationship. I mean,
Right.
my relationship is very relaxed. It's a very we don't have many shoulds at all. I mean, we obviously have certain agreements that we have with each other, and our agreement is that we're monogamous and we're faithful. We don't have to live together. We don't have to do all these things. But as far as sort of socially talking to other people, I'm just like, hey, go and do your thing. Yeah, I'll talk to
Mhm.
whoever. We're very lax with expectations of each other in that setting. It's to me, it's a chance to enjoy each other people's company and to
Yeah.
explore ideas and things like that. And however, anyway, it really showed me how much pain this person was going through because of her list of shoulds of what a partner should be like and should behave like. And it was fascinating. And I really saw it and thought, God, if you didn't have that list, you'd probably be fine, quite honestly, because this person did nothing wrong in my book.
And
you know.
that's the thing. The thing that's one of the things is, I think some people have rules around monogamy or rules around a relationship where things should be a certain way.
Mm-hmm,
And what happens also is that people don't talk about it. So they get into a relationship and they set up this whole structure of these shoulds about their partner didn't agree to.
mm-hmm,
So without
exactly.
having it's like when you get to know somebody, here's a little tip, by the way, if you're dating somebody, is have a conversation about what you expect from each other, what it is you want to have with each other, what the framework is you want to play in. So
Mm-hmm,
that way they can say yes or no, and they can choose in or out rather than being shoulded into doing it.
exactly. Or worse than that, not even know what the shoulds are. and
Well,
you've got bullets coming at you, and you're like, what did I do wrong? I didn't
absolutely.
realize there was this list of shoulds I should have been adhering to, when I first got in a relationship with you.
Mhm.
So yes,
Absolutely.
obviously it's clarity and it's agreements, and we've talked about that before as well. Agreements versus expectations, and things like that. But also, we always say it's not just the relationship you're in with other people, but the relationship you have with yourself. And I I know that so many people, myself included, that spent the first half of my life, or with this list of shoulds, never questioning whether they made sense or not, who the hell first made them up, why am I adhering to them, even if they don't make sense to me. And
Yeah.
that, I mean, we put ourselves in these little boxes of, this is what is expected of me, or this is what society says I should do. And
Hmm.
again, I'm not that liberal that I don't believe that we that it's good to have certain guidelines, and certainly good to be respectful of each other. But within a relationship, I think if you are two consenting adults, you discuss what on earth you want to do with each other in that relationship.
Right.
The one criteria I have is when there are young children involved. I think as a parent, I do think it's our responsibility to give our children a safe and secure structure to live in, where they feel that they're not mortally embarrassed by their parents' behavior. Put it that
Well,
way.
well, the
Um,
thing is, in that context, it really is about the responsibility versus the should, because the should implies somebody's not being responsible because they're already responsible. They didn't know what to do. They're handling it that way. So the thing is that when you are being responsible, like you're saying, with kids or with each other, that's it's almost like a self-based honoring or a self-based resource you come from. Whereas the other person saying you should do this, you should do that, and they keep pointing the finger, which basically makes you feel less than responsible.
yeah,
That's one
yeah.
of those dichotomies.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking more along the lines of, like, just because we mentioned, having a monogamous relationship or not.
Hmm.
And, many people, like the book I was just talking about, is called All Fours, and it's a fascinating book. I mean, it really brings up a lot of questions about our culture, and how we behave within relationships, and what's expected of us, and how we, in this book, this woman basically designs the relationship she wants. She has the courage to say to her husband, I love you, and we've come this far. I still want to keep the family unit. I still want us to parent together, but I want to also go outside of the marriage. And he was fine with it. And they built this agreement where it was fine for both of them to do that. I think what I'm saying is, when I've known other couples that have done that, but have not necessarily been discreet about it in a small community where it's sort of discussed very openly, and I've seen the effect it can have on the children when their parents' choices are being discussed publicly. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, is if that is your agreement, there's no judgment, whatever, but just also be very aware of the impact some of that
Mhm.
the choices you make can have on your children. So
Absolutely.
besides that, but going back to what we were saying about the shoulds, what besides this experience you had with this woman on social media that was shoulding you, what where have you shoulded yourself in your life?
Uh, Boy. Well, the life I've followed and versus the life I should have lived. I
Should have
definitely,
been to you or to your family.
well, that was the thing. I was definitely in the model template that my family didn't dictate, but they encouraged.
Mhm.
Um, so finding my path and moving to the United States was one of the things where I didn't stay on the path that I should have stayed on and didn't follow the rules that I should have done, because where I grew up, most of the kids I grew up to school with were looking at get married and settle down by the early 20s. Very few went to college. I was one of the few that did go to college, but then I didn't stay there. I went on from there. And so I know I broke the mold of the shoulds, so to speak. Well, I get back even further. At my bar mitzvah at 13,
Mhm.
I should have done my bar mitzvah, followed the rules, and just become part of the community. When I was up on by the Torah, I remember looking back in when there was a gap in my reading at the temple, the synagogue, and the one I went to had men and women sitting separately.
Mhm.
And I saw at the back, and I mean, I was 13 at the time, barely. I remember looking back and seeing about 5 men standing at the back of the temple who were the businessmen. They were like the board of trustees kind of thing, I guess, now looking back. And I felt this one, disillusionment, but two, there was a sense that I couldn't fit in and conform to what was already ordained. The other part that came up for me right then was also because of that experience was about a boy's journey into manhood. It's like I was after I'm a burnt mitzvah going, hang on, I'm supposed to be a man now. How do I do that? This whole like confusion. So
Nice.
yeah, which was the should that was put on top, not necessarily vocalized as a should, but it was kind of like, you know, it's your journey to manhood. You should be this, not. And I felt that inaccurate pressure.
Mm.
So definitely at points in my life, I've had those awarenesses of the shoulds being layered on top of me, and then very clearly choosing not to abide by them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you've just brought up something when you were talking about that a should that I experienced. But when you were initially talking, I was thinking, gosh, my childhood was so, we were not certainly my mother was not conforming to anything. I went
Right.
to a Catholic
You
girls'
weren't the
school.
Brady Bunch.
Sorry, what was that?
You weren't the Brady Bunch.
No, we were not the Brady Bunch. We were a bunch, but not the Brady Bunch. And so the Catholic school had their list of shoulds and that doctrine that came with that. But I definitely didn't, and I think maybe that has something to do with my sort of somewhat free spirit now and not really feeling like I have to conform, have to get married, have to live together, have to do all these things. Um, but when you were talking about your bar mitzvah, I used to be into Kabbalah, and I remember my Kabbalah teacher saying to me, because I really had an issue with that, women on one side of the room and men on the other, and especially for
Mhm.
Kabbalah because it's sort of a contemporary and um, spiritual understanding. And I was like, but why? Why can't we all stand together? Why did it? And I remember my teacher saying to me, you because I used to do an awful lot of Native American sweat lodges and things like that as well, and I love ceremony, and I just love anything to do with ceremony. And he was like, you have to pick, you have to choose a path, you cannot pick and choose from all these different areas. And I remember thinking, why? I mean,
Mhm.
all spiritual teachings are all pointing in the same direction. Why can't I enjoy a multitude of different spiritual teachings? Why does it have to be one way or the highway? And why, and a lot of, again, in these religious communities, whoever said that men and women have to be on separate sides of the room, for goodness sake? I mean, what is that all about?
There's something. I mean, well, I wasn't going to go here, but we are. Um, Religion as a whole, especially Western religion, has definitely got a lot of shoulds enrolled in it. Like there's a conformity and a requirement of people who are members of various religions that feel like a whole list of shoulds. In fact, some of the books in the Bible are full of shoulds, just to be blunt about it. So we've got that imprinting of shoulds from a very young age.
Mhm.
And so the requirements of various religious teachings, whether it is, going to church on Sunday or going to temple on Friday night or whatever it is your teaching has, those are rules that, yes, do support the community and do create this alignment. But it feels a lot of times like it's a pressure that you should do this. You can't do things differently. And so what you said about having being told you should do one, you can't have a wide array, a smorgasbord that you can enjoy and embrace whenever you want. It feels like the same thing. It's that conformity that is, to be blunt, it's a way that they can control the masses. When you pick and choose, you're outside that framework, so you have a lot more freedom, which is what I think is a good thing, frankly.
Yeah, no, that's exactly that. I totally agree with you. I think that's so true. And it's really interesting because I'm also noticing, certainly I don't think we experience this in the UK as much, but the Constitution in America, it's like this thing that was written, however many, couple of 100 years ago, is like, we got to stick to it. That's it. This is it. And to me, yeah, I think there's some incredible wisdom in that, and that's what what this nation is founded on, etc. But evolution, I mean, we evolve as people, and things evolve. I mean, Second Amendment, what were they referring to back then? And what are we dealing with today? We're not dealing with a musket or a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
With very different things. And again, these rules of we should, we have to, we cannot question, we can't evolve over time. I just, it really, it's a very interesting thing for me. And again, as I say, I didn't grow up feeling that we had the same rules
Well,
as far as, what were you going to say?
I'll say we had the Magna Carta, so we come from, which is a lot older,
Exactly. Which,
and we've grown, and we have kind of grown beyond that since that
yeah,
point. To be honest with
exactly,
you. Whereas
exactly.
I think maybe because America is a younger country, maybe the Constitution has a more of a hold on the way things are done. Maybe in 1,000 years it won't be so invested. I don't know. I'm not saying it should be banned by any means. I'm not in that boat.
Yeah.
The thing is, the Magna Carta was something that was, it's 1,000 years old, I think, roughly. So we haven't stuck by it because we've grown and evolved since. And I think the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution is a similar document that over time might find itself being more honored but not necessarily lived by.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. As we're talking, I'm thinking about, you know, um, there's just so many things that I even see in people I know who are afraid to embrace anything that is sort of out of what they grew up with. I mean, thank
Hmm.
goodness. I mean, gay marriage is I think we finally evolved, but I do know that there are still some people that think marriage should be a certain way, and it's like, again, who said that and why? Why shouldn't marriage be between two people that love each other? Why does it have to look a certain way? And the
Yeah.
same thing with sexual identity. It's the same.
Hmm.
But I do think that we are evolving. Hopefully, maybe not as fast as I'd like to.
Fits and starts.
Yes, but it is. It's that when we when we loosen the grip on the shoulds, there's so much more room for personal growth,
Hmm.
evolution. There's so many things that open up to us when we take that mantle of it should be this way. Somebody said it's this way, and I'm not going to question it.
Yeah, I think that frankly, there's more freedom to be ourselves when we don't carry that weight of the shoulds on our shoulders too. I mean, the whole thing about shoulds and shoulders going together because of the wording is that sense it's the pressure we carry. So many people walk around with stiff shoulders and tightness and those sort of things because they carry this either conscious or unconscious mental list of shoulds they just keep berating themselves with all the time. And if we could shed that load, even for 10 minutes, an hour or two a day, we might feel us a lot more true to ourselves and be aligned to our own values for a change because we have been so trained by society, by our families, by relationships to agree to shoulds, to abide by a certain level of shoulds. And yes, obviously some of them are common sense, like respecting each other, sort of thing, are common sense. But still, so many people are carrying out this weight, this heavy load of shoulds that no longer function for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, and again, it's this the fear of exposing, questioning those shoulds, the fear of what will people think of me if I challenge this belief. What if I discuss it openly and say, I'm not so sure I believe in this anymore. Can we look at this? Can we talk about it?
Hmm.
This, again, it's that fear of being judged, fear of losing control. If you It's fascinating to me, the as I said, the rule book of a relationship has to look this way, whether we say it's the relationship with somebody else or somebody in your family or with the relationship you have with yourself. But if
Hmm.
we can just loosen the grip on that and just question, why we believe that. And it could be at the end of it that we're like, well, we believe this because it's what's best for us and it's what's best for the partnership. Great, wonderful. but
Right.
be open to even looking at it and challenging where that belief system first took place. Does it make sense anymore? Is it something that is, as you say, a weight on your shoulders that's shackling you and holding you back? Or is it just something that's actually a really good framework to live within because it's actually helpful?
Absolutely. The quote came to mind, I think it's from Mad Magazine, was question reality. It's that sense, isn't it, in a lot of ways, because what's about is questioning your own reality. What have you set up as your rule book, your way of being, that the shell you put yourself in, the container, because you've got all these shoulds that you've accepted as the way life is supposed to be. And yeah, to be able to shed them and look at them clearly, like just like take them off and go, oh, is this real? Do I believe this or not? And choose for yourself if it's in blind or not, and then you can be free.
Yeah. And even things as you were saying that, I was thinking back to about just how our education system is as well. This expectation that you should know something. Well,
Hmm.
you're at school, you're at college for to learn, and yet so many of us put this expectation that we beat ourselves up if we don't get excellent grades. We're missing the point. We're missing the point that we've actually gone there to learn, and it's not a test to see how much you know already. And things like that. And I think these are really important to question that the old model of education and
Hmm.
being less punitive if somebody is struggling, and to really help our children see that there are no stupid questions, that
Absolutely.
being curious, that's a
Mm.
great thing. Falling flat on your face and failing is a great thing because it means that you took a risk, you went beyond your limit, or your limited view of what you could do. And I just think these are all so important. Again, it's that should that um, we stay safe, we hold
Hmm.
ourselves back.
Absolutely. This is an interesting topic to start on, and the truth is, it does cover so much of life beyond a relationship.
Hmm.
Let's just bring it back to that for a second, since that's what talking about is relationship. If you're in a relationship now, are you willing to look at your own shoulds in the mirror? Are you willing to look at yourself and what you've made up as rules about your partner? Or if you're single, what your future partner will be like, in terms of how do you presume they must be to fit in the rules you've got carrying around inside yourself? Because those are shoulds.
Hmm.
And are you willing to look at your current partner or your future partner through a lens where they can be themselves and you could learn about who they are versus presume things about them?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have your
that's
choice.
it's really interesting you should say that. I was in my book club the other week, and we were actually talking about a different book. But it's really interesting to me how often I hear people say that maybe they've been married, or they've divorced or whatever. And this woman, the author of this book, she came to our book club to talk to us, and she just happens to be a friend that I've known for many years. And the biggest thing that most people, when they were talking about if they had gone through a divorce and they were in a current relationship, the thing that seemed to be the most important thing to being happy was, and I kept hearing it from different people, and they were like, my partner lets me be me. And
Mm.
that, it was just a universal, it was throughout. The people that were happy were when they didn't feel that their partner was trying to make them into something they weren't, that they
Mhm.
weren't living up to this expectation or this list of shoulds that they probably weren't even aware of when they first got married. Um,
Right.
but but it was interesting that ability to be seen and heard and valued and allowed to be yourself, even if it didn't initially conform with what you think your partner should behave like. But if you could
Hmm.
just take off that shoulds and just go, hang on a minute, is this really harming me that they want to go and climb mountains or whatever it was that this person was actually doing? She was a man. She's summited all seven summits. She's incredible. But society had a lot of judgment about her because she did these really extreme sports, and it was like, but you're a wife and you're a mother and you shouldn't be doing this. And it was really interesting to have her discuss how hard it was to and being a mother was the primary thing in life, was being, her children came first, but she had this really pioneering spirit that wanted to go and explore and do these wild extreme sports
Adventures.
adventures. And
Yeah.
and to be able to do both was incredible. But just so happened within her first marriage that wasn't acceptable. So
Right.
and
So it didn't
also
work.
yeah, and we also talked about how society had judgments. Well, a good mother would never do that. Or maybe modeling living your own life is a good mother. I mean, she was certainly home for her children. She didn't abandon them by any means, or she just had to have this hobby that was a little extreme for some people. All right,
Love
well, I
it.
think we've covered this.
There's so much more we could talk about, but we'll have to save it for another episode.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you again, everybody. This is another great week. Thank you, Barry. And
Thank you, Del, for bringing it forward. Great topic.
great, we'll see each other again next week.
We will. Take care.
And you too. Thanks. Bye bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.